Let the comments begin.
舰长，车上的武器已向我舰发射，进入一级战斗部署。
Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen. My name is Lydia Yang, and this is my review of Operation Red Sea. Dante Lam follows up 2016's Operation Mekong, which was based, albeit scantily, on real events, with Operation Red Sea, based on the 2015 evacuation of Chinese nationals from Yemen, which, according to this photo from the event, might have taken an afternoon and doesn't look very explosion-y. But so what? For decades, Hollywood has diddled truth like a roofied cheerleader, and still does so on a regular basis. So I'm really not mad at Dante Lam. Operation Red Sea is written by Feng Ji, who's never written a movie before. But he's watched a lot of them, I can assure you. Like Dante Lam has done before him, Feng's making movies more environmentally friendly by recycling whenever and wherever possible. Most of the major plot points in Operation Red Sea will be familiar to anybody who's seen movies like Captain Phillips, Black Hawk Down, American Sniper, Lone Survivor, Saving Private Ryan, Enemy at the Gates, Tears of the Sun, and The Pacifier. Okay, not that last one, but the others will be really familiar. I'm talking about shots and entire scenes. Hopefully, Feng Ji's next movie will be called Operation Write Your Own Goddamn Movie. But so what? The real question is, how well does Operation Red Sea do what it does? And on that level, believe me, Operation Red Sea does it really, really well. Say what you will about Dante Lam's stories, the action scenes are never a letdown. And here, set loose with a big budget and the help of the Chinese military, he gives us more guns, explosions, and blood than anybody could ever hope for. In fact, you might eventually hope for a little less. Operation Red Sea isn't so much a story as a progression of bigger and bigger set pieces. Over the 2+ hours of the film, each new situation asks the viewer to become more excited, more afraid, and more involved than the last one. It's exhausting. The problem with constantly ratcheting up tension is that pretty soon you run out of throw. Quite honestly, at 138 minutes, Operation Red Sea just feels too long. If this movie was pared down to 90 minutes, it would be a much tighter film, and I think it would pack a better punch. Which is not to say that it doesn't already have a hell of a wallop, because it does. But it's not just because of all the explosions and excitement and stuff, it's more than that. For me, the credit for the film's impact really should go to the cast. Now, I wish that Zhang Hanyu had a bigger role in the movie, but that's just part of the outsized man crush that I have on him. Even so, that one is dwarfed by the gargantuan man crush I have on Kitty Jong after watching this movie. One problem with Founding of an Army, the 2017 movie about the founding of the PLA, was the casting of what is commonly known as Little Fresh Meat in China. It refers to young pop stars, you know, someone who may be a good singer or a good actor, but as Eddie Murphy puts it,
they ain't the most masculine fellow in the world.
I don't think any of the team members in Operation Red Sea should be called that particular pejorative term, but they do face an uphill battle trying to be, or at least appear, tougher than their female teammate. A scene that unfortunately ended up on the cutting room floor was to feature a contest between Kitty Jong's character and one of her teammates to see which one of them had the better abs. In that footage, and I'm sure in real life, she probably won. She's a beast, and I mean that in the most positive way possible. She makes really great use of the stern face that she wore throughout God of War to even greater effect here, and quite honestly comes off as the most convincing member of the team. Whether she's moving tactically or operating a large variety of weapons, or having a particularly nasty hand-to-hand fight inside an airplane, she really is the most believable of the bunch. She also gets to have what I think is the most developed backstory of any of the team members. And she handles the emotional climax of that subplot very impressively. I know Kitty Jong in real life, and while that obviously means that I can't be objective like I make that a habit, it also means that someone I know could convince me that they were someone else. That subplot and a lot of other things in this movie stand in stark opposition to the idea that this film glorifies war. It really doesn't. A lot of Operation Red Sea shows us how cruel, unpleasant, and futile war is, and a lot of times it forces us to look at things we would much rather look away from. This movie is so violent, it got a Category 3 rating in Hong Kong, and it deserves it. While Operation Red Sea really should be called a propaganda movie, it's really only that way occasionally. That said, those moments are extremely clear. At the end of the film, a title card gives a phone number for Chinese people to call anywhere in the world if they need help from their government. Unfortunately, it went by so fast I didn't even have time to read it, and it was only 5 numbers. But luckily, I found this photo of that title card on the internet. I swear I didn't take this photo, I'm just sharing it with you. The shot that follows that one, which is also the last shot of the film, shows the Chinese Navy frightening foreign vessels away from sovereign Chinese territory. It's the South China Sea. None of the cast appears in any of this, and in fact, it's just ships. I think it probably was stock footage and maybe some CG. After 132 minutes, quite honestly, I was just too exhausted to be bothered by it. And you really do have to bookend it with the way that you find out what the name of this movie is. When the title of this movie appears, it literally rises up out of the ocean in a cringeworthy display of bad special effects. The title comes up and there's water running off of it. So getting mad at this movie for being propaganda would be like, tell him, Chris.
It's like playing basketball with a retarded kid and calling him for double dribble.
Operation Red Sea may be a propaganda film, but I actually appreciate that, because unlike a lot of American movies, at least it's honest right up front about its intentions. It doesn't try to hide the fact that it got assistance from the Chinese military. They're in the credits. And it makes its political agenda very, very clear from the start of the film. Yeah, it's clumsy and a little overstated at times, but if you ever tried to sit through missing in action, woof. I just can't wait for all the comments that will come from the Wu Mao and the little pinks who will resolutely defend the motherland from foreign criticisms while they live in Australia. I enjoyed Operation Red Sea at least as much as I expected to, and for the reasons I expected to. Politically, it didn't really bother me, because if you didn't know it was going to be like that before you sat down, that's on you. But really, I was mostly just impressed with the way Kitty Jong handled her role, because I know how hard she worked on this movie, I know how excited she was to do it, and I know how much it means to her. So I was really happy for that, but I also think that it's definitely worth watching just for her performance. Everybody else in the movie does a pretty good job as well, and there's a lot of stuff in the film that is really commendable, especially the action scenes, because it's a Dante Lam film. If you want to watch this movie, definitely see it in the cinema. Spring for the ones with the vibrating seats, because I got to see it that way and it was great. Otherwise, wait until you can rent or buy a copy. I don't think it's a good idea to steal something that theoretically is the property of the Chinese government. Wouldn't do it. When this movie gets released to home video, I'll update the description with a link where you could buy a copy. That would be a good thing to do. And as long as we're talking about spending money, please click on my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, I can have dental care and decent food and clean... Wait, no, that's the wrong one. You know what I mean. If you enjoyed this review, please let me know. If you didn't, let me know. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.